Just one moment here.
Hello. Thank you for joining. And I guess while Gary is having all the live streams going, maybe people want to put stuff in the chat around any questions, or I know there's going to be a lot more people today, so definitely want to get through everyone's questions. Let's see. Hello. Hi, James, Stephen,
Hey, Stephen.
Helen. Having any specific questions anyone has? I mean, I know Gary always asks really good questions, but if you guys have any, we can start with yours.
Yeah. All right, cool. We're live on all the different services. And yeah, those of you that are joining in, please use the text chat to post any questions you may have. If you want to use your camera mic, you can raise your hand and we can bring you up on stage, and you can use your microphone and your camera optional. But yeah, feel free to just use the text chat if that's easier for you. And then everyone that's watching on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitch, yeah, share what you're working on in the text chat, post questions. I will relay those to Irina, and then we'll get going. Irina, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Sure. This is our, I think, 5th office hour this year. I've been really enjoying it. So I help funds and accelerators evaluate the AI startups. And I also mentor a lot of startups. I want to say probably over 100 a year on anything from fundraising, pitch decks, data AI strategy, hiring, anything else that comes up. And my background has been, developing, implementing, even inventing AI algorithms and leading global data teams. So if there's questions around any of that, happy to talk. And then we'll just see, where things go. I also do answer a lot of questions on my blog post from frequently asked questions. And then I also started a Substack with advice that I look for when I do diligence. So hopefully that helps. And we'll see if anyone has any questions. Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Helen.
Awesome.
You got us
Yeah.
going right away.
Sure. Love that. Yeah.
No,
that's a really great question.
Read it real quick for everyone that's not on Startmata, where we're hosting this. All right, so Helen asks, as a non-technical founder in AI health tech, what exactly should I be prepared to show VCs during technical due diligence at a pre-seed stage?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So, and I will say there's, I'll also share resources and give kind of a quick overview, but so Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z, has a checklist also of what they look for. So the short answer is all of the legal incorporations, any of the documents, what does your cap table look like? Where's everyone? What are all the ownerships? What are all the legalese and financials around it? So those are also part of technical diligence. So usually you will be asked for this either once you get the term sheet, or it'll say, the term sheet is after you pass diligence, we'll actually sign all the legal stuff, or this will be even before you get the term sheet, you're going to be asked for all of these things. When I wear the AI diligence hat, what I look for is whatever you pitched, can you talk through it? And how does that impact the product and your customers? So product and customers are still first. So if you're saying you're bringing X value, like walk me through it. How does that actually work end to end? And can you, as a non-technical founder, actually explain what's going on? Because I find that if AI is super core to the product, it becomes a yellow flag if the rest of the executive and the founding team can't explain what's going on. And happy to dive into any of that. So hopefully that helps.
When you say explain what's going on, a lot of times, people can interpret that in a lot of different ways. So can you expand a little bit more to make it easier to understand exactly what you mean when you
Sure.
ask
Oh
someone to do
yeah,
that?
no, that's a really good question. Yeah. So a lot of the time when I'm doing diligence, one of the rounds might be you're pitching to a panel of experts, and I'm just one of the experts in the room. You'll have a go-to-market expert, sales, whoever. And this is usually for those that may not know, it's, you'll send the pitch deck, somebody reviews, and then this might be your first meeting is you're pitching to a panel of experts on a deck that we've already seen. And I think my side advice is even if the meeting's 20 minutes or 45, your pitch should still be 3 to 5 minutes. This is not the time to pitch for 19 and a half minutes in a 20-minute meeting or 42 minutes in a 50-minute meeting. And I see that all the time. But what I see a lot is somebody will pitch and they'll say, exactly this. We're an AI health tech startup, and we're solving whatever problem for our customers. And I'm like, okay, great. What does that mean? What is your AI? And the answer is, well, it's AI. We do machine learning. Or maybe they'll say, well, we do neural networks. I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? And they're like, well, it's an algorithm. Like, great, but like, what algorithm? And you don't have to tell me exactly the algorithm, but just have an idea of how what is actually happening to the data and the customers versus if, let's say, one example, and this might be an example that we talk through today, is let's say you're a startup that's trying to predict whether there's a leak in the plumbing in the house. And you're trying to say, okay, if I think a leak is going to happen, I'm going to stop it so that, you shut off the water. And there's actually, a couple startups that have been acquired by big companies. But the main idea is you're trying to predict something happens and then you shut that off. So if you can tell me exactly that, we're trying to predict based on past data or whatever, past leaks, whether a leak over 50 gallons happens, we shut that off. That's a lot more explainable than if somebody just says, well, we just do AI. And maybe in the follow-up, depending if there's questions still around what's going on, we can dive into, well, what is the algorithm? At a high level, like what are you actually doing? How does that integrate? How does that work real time? How does all of that work? But at a very, very high level, being able to explain why you even need an algorithm in the first place goes a long way to show that the team is on the same page. Because the yellow flag is not the fact that you can't explain something technically, it's that you and non-technical collaborators, and technical collaborators aren't on the same page about what's going on, and they can't tell you what's going on. And then it becomes a yellow flag around, well, if you're a small company and things aren't on the same page when you're communicating, how is it going to be when you grow? So that's kind of the yellow flag there. Yeah. Hopefully that helps. But yeah, really good question.
No, that's great. Yeah, Helen. So also in terms of like interpretation, misinterpretation, when you say pre-seed stage, it'd be great to know what kind of milestones you've hit so far. You know, you say you're AI health tech, so there's going to be a lot more regulation and hurdles to going to market in most cases. So, yeah, like, do you have a prototype? Have you done any sort of trials, data? Like, how far along are you in regards to making your idea into a tangible product in the market? And if you're fundraising, what are your intentions for the capital that you raise at like a high level? It might add a little bit more context for Irina to add advice and some insights too. And those of you that are joining us now on LinkedIn, because I see more people jumping in, use the text chat, ask questions, share what you're working on. I'll relay those to Irina so you can get some answers, get some feedback, some insights, some advice too. So yeah, don't be shy. And then yeah, Helen's typing, which is great. Lee, I see you just joined us over on Start Motto. Welcome. I don't know if you can use the text chat, Lee, as a guest. If you can, ask questions. If you can't, register for an actual account, and then you can join in, and you can raise your hand, jump on stage too, use your microphone to have an actual conversation, which is always fun. Okay, so let's see here. All right, so Irina, this comes up a lot. We're doing a lot of pitch workshops and reviews and getting asked for advice. Um, okay, so when you're looking at pitch decks, what are the top three things that are red flags immediately, and what are three things that are green flags that show you that you're working with a founder with aptitude, a clear understanding of the market and their product and who they're working with, and are capable of taking money and going to scale?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. Yeah. So this is awesome. I appreciate it. So red flags, the top three, I would say the first one is either not understanding how things work in the industry. I see this a lot in healthcare, actually, health tech startups where they pitch and it's usually a technical founder without a healthcare background. And the way that they pitch shows that they don't understand how convoluted things are. And I wish things worked the way that they also pitch. Don't get me wrong, but it's the worst where I'm like, oh man, yes, I do wish this is how it was and this is how you tie in, but that's not actually how things work. And so usually that's a red flag off the top. Um, the other one, which I see a lot, is around AI for me, is anytime I see models that show we're 99% accurate, super red flag, which is also most startups. I actually have a whole Substack blog about this and why that is. And the short answer is because, to the first point, the healthcare is so convoluted, and I see this a lot, especially in healthcare. Because the healthcare is so convoluted, one example is if you're trying to predict, let's say, whether somebody has cancer or not. Well, if you're trying to predict cancer or not from images of whatever type of cancer, by the time somebody goes to their primary doctor and gets a referral to see a specialist, and the specialist refers them to get the echo or whatever the imaging, my naive model can predict everyone is going to have cancer, and I'm going to actually have very similar accuracy to your current model. So to me, that's usually a red flag right there. The other red flag is, I would say, this is especially true with with technical founders, is it's not in plain language. And so what that means is if I can't understand it, I also then can't write even a subject matter, even a subject line to a VC to introduce you, and I can't ask any other questions. So again, if we're and actually this happens to me multiple times, where I'm the expert in the room. I'm actually probably the most technical expert in the room, and none of us understand what's going on for 55 minutes, even though we keep asking questions. And it's the worst experience on all sides because then it's a clear no. And the feedback is, well, one, you didn't take any questions, you didn't explain it. And my advice to founders, you're super technical, you love what you do. I can talk about data and AI till, the cows come home, but that's not why you're here. You don't care about that. You care about your pitch. And I would say my advice to founders is, ask ChatGPT, put whatever you want, then say, explain it like I'm 10. And then see, maybe some of the things that got wrong, but it helps a long way to build that rapport. And what happens in the right meetings, it actually does become a conversation because you pitch for 3 to 5 minutes. We have enough context to sort of understand what's going on. And then we'll ask you questions and you show your expertise, and that builds rapport. And that's kind of going to the green flag, that back and forth around, and you don't have to be agreeable. It's, hey, we thought about this, but actually we know this and that didn't work. That builds a lot of rapport around showing your expertise. So having that kind of back and forth in a meeting just builds so much momentum and so much, I'm never looking for founders that are coachable. I'm looking for founders, honestly, that can take input, and then I'm okay if they say, okay, we hear you, but actually this is not how things work, because then you show your expertise. So this showing expertise to me is a big green flag. I mean, the other one, you will always hear this, the traction and the network effects, and probably the network effects even more importantly is and what I mean by network effects is, you know, how you're going to be selling to your customers is going to be a big hurdle. And so a lot of the time people fundraise, and, you know, understandably, like, we're going to use 3/4 of our round to on ads. Okay, well, if everyone's pitching that, I could just give that money to, you know, Google, Meta, your favorite. But if you can say, hey, I have this way to spend way less money and reach so many more customers, and you demonstrate that. One example, so I'm not affiliated at all, but I mentored a startup at Techstars LA where they're essentially a way to package up protein shakes. So they're essentially Keurig for protein shakes, but they have their own Keurig and their own pods, because, having talked to the founder, I now understand you can't just throw in your protein powder into your existing Keurig because it's going to clump. So to me, right, like, that was something I didn't understand. Like, well, why do I need a separate Keurig? Like, why do I need a separate pod? Like, what are we doing here? You know, and he was super nice in explaining that, and that builds rapport. And then his network effect would be going to you know, it could be an existing protein shake company that does the liquids and says, hey, do you want to enter a new market into the K-Cups? They're like, yes, great. You know, win-win. Why would they not to? And then you go to the powdered ones and to say, hey, do you want to enter into the K-Cup equivalent? And they're like, of course. Great. Like, I don't think that's a lot of spend to get those customers. And then the traction is, as always, it's, I have a blog post also around what does it mean to return a fund. So when a fund invests in you, what they're looking for is, if they're a $10 million fund, how do you bring back to the fund at least 10 million, but actually you want it multiple, so maybe 50 million for whatever share they have. So if they invested in you at, let's say, $2 million for 5% share, how does that 5% convert into 50 million down the line? That is why they would invest. So the more that you can talk about how you've de-risked, how you're going to grow, and how are you going to get to that big exit, so that they get that return multiple, will go a long way to showing how you're a no-brainer investment. Easier said than done. And if you're joining not on Circle, I'm going to put in the chat, but if you just go to my website, Kukuyeva.com, and it's in the blog and founders, and the first one's understanding how VCs make money. I highly, highly recommend just browsing through it to understand why, again, how VCs make money, so that when you're pitching to that. Yeah.
Awesome. No, that's all appreciated and very, hopefully, helpful insights for everyone. Helen added a little bit more context. Thank you. We are pre-funding, preparing for a raise, and starting to build our tech team. I have started on the architecture layout of the model and narrowing the etiologies we will be focusing on. I have milestones laid out for the first round for an observational study, inventional proof of concept, and regulatory clearance. Irina, I'm curious, and I asked this question of Helen in the chat, but for something like this, how important are grants to be sought after as a funding source?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. I feel like in other times, I would say that would be like my number one, right? Of just like, hey, if you can get grants to fund all of this, that would be amazing. So yeah, I completely agree. If you can get grants, yes. I think my next best is, again, easier said than done, but are there certain things that you can do now by yourself to even show, and we talk about actually the fake door tag so much, of what can you show now to build that rapport so that you're not pitching, and I'm not saying you are, but a lot of the startups super early stage are pitching to, I have this idea, can you give us money, versus, hey, we've de-risked a little bit, give us money to de-risk the next bit, and then raise again to de-risk the next, and then scale. So if there's certain things that you can do now to show, what are things based on your expertise that nobody else has, that again, the model could be super naive about, like going back to the leak example, maybe it's something like, the pipes are 30 years old, or whatever the life of the pipe is. I don't know, actually. I rent. But for instance, there was a major leak on Sunset Boulevard, where one of the pipes from UCLA burst, and UCLA moved to Westwood in 1919, and none of the pipes, it sounded like none of the pipes have been replaced. So I feel like, I'm sure over 100 years, this should have been expected. Like, it shouldn't have been a surprise looking back. Again, this was a major flood, like flooded Sunset, flooded their new gym, after the renovation, all of that, which, again, is very unfortunate and very catastrophic and cost a lot. But are there things that, maybe less so, it's, if you're doing pre-orders, like I was doing a pre-order for a startup that I wanted to support, I did support, and they said we're shipping it between April to June, pre-order shipping in April or May. Well, I heard nothing, and then June 1st, I emailed them and said, hey, what's up? Remember me? I paid you. What's going on? It takes no effort to just send an email mid-April, mid-May, to not surprise the customers and just say, hey, things are still fine. We didn't forget about you. So it's certain things that are super small that you can do to build rapport is what I would say now. And for the fake door tag, I will point everyone to the March version of the office hours, the last 10-15 minutes, like at minute 43, and I'm going to drop this in the chat. We dive into what that is, because I do want to take other questions as well. But I highly recommend that. And let me put that in the chat as well, because it is always such a good question, and I feel like we always cover it. Yeah.
Awesome. I got some questions coming in from LinkedIn with Samjadi. So on the way. Share this to the other chats too real quick.
Oh yeah. This is a great question too. Great. So if I had to focus on 3 slides only, what would matter most? So I would say, and everyone is going to have a different opinion, right? So this is one take. I would say my goal, usually it's the problem, solution, why you, why now. And the why you, why now, it could be one slide. But it could be also as soon as you communicate. So the problem to me is a lot of the time it's not clear what is the actual pain point. And I would love to feel the pain, like as whatever you're describing. And again, maybe it is one slide, but maybe the way you narrate things, maybe that's multiple slides to get the graphics across, but make it really clear why this is actually super painful and super needed. Right? Like if I told you I rent and we get flooded, like no joke, probably every year, probably like every year and a half. That is a pain point that like I physically is super painful. But maybe it's about, maybe a tech product is something around, well, right now, the information is in 10 different spaces. Maybe it's on a notepad, it's in the calendar, it's somewhere else. Like make me actually feel like, wow, this is a really big problem. And then the solution, I want you to solve, if you can talk through end to end, because I feel like many companies forget that part. And what I mean by end to end is, if you told me you're solving the productivity or the leak, walk me through how do you diagnose all the way to fixing it. Like, where's the alert? What's turned off? How does that actually get solved? If you're saving me 10 hours a day, how does that actually happen? And I feel like a lot of what I see is the pitch will say we're AI for whatever industry, and the solution is, well, we're SaaS and it's $10 a month. And so it's okay, great, but I didn't learn anything. Like, what does that actually mean? And why, why is it this solution? And then why you, why now? It's, why are you the right team? For the investors in a niche like, let's say, edtech SaaS, or pick your favorite fintech SaaS, they probably see, I want to say hundreds, they probably see thousands of deals a year, which is hundreds of deals a month. A lot of them are very similar. So the question is, why are you the team that will get it to be the $1 billion company? What is that expertise in that industry that you have? Is there a new regulation that passed? And what, for the team, it's, what have you done in the past that has shown that you know how to take this all the way? So hopefully that helps. But that is a really, really, really good question. And I'm going to cheat because you said 3 slides only. I'm a big fan of appendix. So you're going to have a 20-page appendix around, common objections. Like, if everyone's asking you, how are you not a ChatGPT wrapper? Great, building report. That slide in the appendix. We're not a ChatGPT wrapper because XYZ. Again, going back to the green flags, that shows that, yeah, you're listening to the input and you've already thought about this and have a counterpoint. Or if they're asking, how are you different from this competitor that's very well known? Great, that's a slide. This is actually how we're different, because you're, again, showing that expertise. So hopefully that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I want to build on a little bit of that. So, when you want to show the problem solution, you want to make it as relatable as possible. And I posted a link to this older Google Super Bowl commercial that they ran. It's a great example of showcasing what it's like to use the product, how it's enjoyable and beneficial, and thus valuable to the people that you're marketing it to. And you could take this example, you don't need to make a video, and you shouldn't make a video for a pitch deck, right? But on a slide, you can very simply storyboard what it's like to walk through the product and use the product. And it demonstrates very clearly, again, what experience people are going to have, how that's beneficial and thus valuable to them. And you can do the same thing with the problem first, walk someone through a day in the life of experiencing the frustrations, the pain points of what exists currently in the market, in the world. And then you contrast that with, here's what it's like to use our product. And again, from a very relatable human perspective, not a bunch of crazy graphs or, a single screenshot of your product and then paragraphs of text. Because as we touched on earlier, you want to eliminate room for misinterpretations, and you do that by showing us directly what it's like to use your product and experience these things in the world, right? So just things to keep in mind of, and you can have a lot of slides in a deck. In a normal deck, you're not limited, right? You set up a meeting with an investor, you have as much as you want. As long as those slides are very easy to digest and very fast paced, no one will notice how many slides there are. No one will care, because you're telling a compelling story that's easy to follow and resonate with and get hooked on. It's a fun experience for them to follow along. But if you are going to be limited to a very small amount of slides, then using a lot of pictures, screenshots, mock-ups is going to go a longer way than having a bunch of dense text on a slide. because again, it's easier to understand and see and interpret those images
Yeah.
versus text that can mean anything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And I would say, building on that, if the question is like, well, how much text is too much? If I can give your talk for you, that's too much text. So, but yeah, the more that you can have visuals and again, plain language, makes it a lot more digestible. Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes back to the exercise with ChatGPT and just, hey, can you can you reinterpret this as if, you're talking to a 10-year-old? That's a good exercise to kind of get you in the framework. But the best thing is to practice with people. Practice with people that have no idea about the market, the industry, anything going on with your product, and see if you can use language that's easy enough for them to understand and follow and repeat it back to you in their own words. And, play a game of
Mm-hmm.
telephone and see how close the message is from you to them, right? And the idea behind this, kind of like you touched on, Irina, is that the easier it is for someone to follow along and understand, the easier it is for them to imagine themselves using the product and believing the product. But also, if they're not a good fit for you, they still like you and they still want to support you, it's easier for them to understand who they can introduce you to or who they can point to you, right? Because sometimes, a warm introduction isn't always going to be viable, but they still want to help and they'll still be like, yeah, let me share your information with them, right? Which is totally valid and incredibly helpful just the same. So, yeah, the less you're making someone think and use their brain while you're pitching to them, the more effective it's going to be, the more persuasive it's going to be. So these are all good.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Definitely. And I would say, so I really like that advice. And then my other than advice is, also go to hear other pitches, especially in different industries that you don't understand, where they're more technical. Even in yours, see what's resonating, and you'll see how many can you understand, and the ones that do, what did they do well, so that you're also learning. What are those visuals? How are they communicating? And which ones, do you not understand? Which again is also valid and will happen a lot.
I'm looking up Peppernine's most fundable
Oh
companies
yeah, that's a
because
good,
they do this every year and they share the pitches. I believe they share the pitches that are submitted, but also during the final competition. It's a ongoing pitch
Mm,
competition. During the finals, they record that and share that too, which is very helpful because then you get to also see the interactions with the judges and how they're evaluating things. But definitely take notes. It's certainly like Shark Tank or any of those other kind of shows which are built on reality, right? But they're shoving this situation into a very limited kind of like working space. So it's
mm-hmm.
like in reality, you don't only have 3 minutes to pitch to an investor. You're building relationships. You're getting to know these people. You have ample time to spend with them if you're doing this correctly. So when you watch like a pitch competition or Shark Tank, there's a lot of things that are glossed over or ignored, but you can still do like Irina, like you said, pay attention, practice mindfulness, take notes of how you're feeling, your emotions, your thoughts that are going through your head, and ask questions why. Why are you reacting like that? Why are you feeling connected? Why are you feeling like frustrated or confused? And dig into that and apply that to when you're putting together your own pitch. Because again, we kind of touched on the whole premise of a pitch is to tell a persuasive story, to convince someone to do something with you, to take a call to action. So, like any good story, it needs to be easy to follow, simple plot lines, simple characters. You're not bombarding them with too many technical details or nonsense that is overwhelming them. You're not making them use their brain too much, right? So these are all great exercises to pay attention and watch. Shark Tank too. There's some takeaways there that are useful. We can get into that a little bit more. It comes up often in regards to smart money investors, dumb money investors, and vetting investors, making sure that they bring more to the table than just
Ooh,
capital.
yeah.
And they're going to open up all these different opportunities for you to grow and learn and have a easier path to
Yeah.
success. But yeah, we got another question actually from
Yeah.
Samjada. So the follow up was, if I don't have strong revenue yet, what proof points matter most to a VC?
Yeah, no, this is a good question. And I would say the fact that you said you don't have strong revenue, but you have some revenue yet. So there's kind of different angles. If you have some revenue, and especially if you're a few months, or let's say 4 to 6 months away from being cash flow positive, I know people will say you need a three slide pitch deck or 10, or this is the format. This should be one of the first slides. You want to get the investors' attention because that's already, you're in the 99th percentile of all the startups pitching, right? Like you're above and beyond everyone else. So the more that you can talk about that, because that itself, the fact that you already have some revenue and you already have some customers, shows that you've de-risked, you're developing a product that people want. So if you don't think it's strong enough, I would still don't discount that at all, because most early stage startups have no revenue. And again, a lot of them are pitching on the idea. So depending what stage you are. So having said that, so again, like show that early and often and talk about how you're growing. And then your milestones will also be around your fundraising to improve those. And so talking through that. So that is one thing. The other one, so if you have no revenue, because I know you said you have some, but the other way is to look at, what metrics do investors look at for your industry and your stage? Because what you'll find is in Lenny's newsletter, I recommend that a lot. He has many blog posts around this on, metrics for SaaS startups, metrics for this and that. So, being able to say, and again, I'm like half making this up, we're at EdTech SaaS startup that's early stage, and the retention metric is 80%. We're at 90 month over month for the past year. Okay, great. You just showed, again, customers care about it. They're sticking around. As an aside, I also have a blog post on why high retention might also be an indicator, how you can unfortunately game that, like accuracy. So again, not always the metric to look at. It's one indication, but being able to talk through, again, showing that you understand what VCs are looking for. So being able to say, again, you're interested in this metric, this is where we are, this is how we're thinking about our business. If you don't have that, you're maybe super early and you're still figuring out your customers, LOIs, right? The letter of intent of, hey, again, step back. So again, revenue, great. Metrics with customers, great. You're not there. LOIs to say, hey, we're developing this, but as soon as this is developed in the next 2 months, I have letters of intent with these companies that are super excited to come on, and I can show you who, and this is who they are. So then this builds that rapport again, and coupled together with it, again, if you can you can talk about the network effects and all of those other things we talked about, builds that rapport, and that this is how we're de-risking things. Because at the end of the day, startups are risky investment, are riskier investment than an S&P 500. And in the blog post that I share, you can think of high net worth individuals. Why do they give money to funds where they're thinking they could get a better return than your standard like S&P, other index funds? And so they expect about, I referenced one of the articles, like a 35% year over year return. So what that means is if somebody gives you, if the fund is $10 million and you exit for a huge amount, and then the fund gets back $10 million in 10 years, well, they effectively lost money to inflation. They didn't even break even. But they should have been giving their investors 35% year over year return, and they didn't do that. So again, the more that you can talk about how you're going to grow and get to that big exit goes a long way. So hopefully that helps. And let's see if I think there was one more question in the chat.
I added a little outline of different factors that
Oh yeah,
may
great.
come up, but yeah, like you're
Awesome.
like you're explaining,
Yes.
It's the job of the founder to do the research and understand what this individual fund or investor is most likely to value, right? And that can also shift a little bit based on personal relationships you may have with the investor. But we'll get into this a little bit more as we wait for more questions. But I'll touch on this real quick. Um, the idea of pitching cold is not good. Instead, you should be reaching out to investors as mentors so you can learn what they care about and why they care about it, and what they're interested in and why they're interested in it, and how they do deals and why they do deals that way, right? So don't be shy, even if you're not looking to raise anytime soon, or you're not even sure if that's like the best path for you, to just reach out to different investors in the community that you feel are relevant to your product, your industry, your market, your field that you're both kind of involved in, and ask them. It's a very simple question that relates to that and who they are and their expertise, and use that as a tool to build a relationship authentically that's not purely transactional, because it's more of a mentee mentor dynamic, but also to vet them, see if they're a good fit, if you can work well together, if you can communicate well together, if you feel good being around this person or not. There's a lot of different things that are important for a healthy long-term business relationship, and an investor's coming in to play that role for the long term. So it's really important. Those just joining us on all the different platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, I'm glad you're here. If you have questions, use the text chat, post them. If you want to just share what you got going on, what you're working on, post that too, and we'll share. Hi, William. Glad you're here. Lee, glad you're a part of this now. So any of you that are over here on Start Model where we're hosting the event, feel free to raise your hand or let me know in chat that you want to jump on stage. You got questions, you want to have a conversation with Irina. Totally cool. And then,
And I'm going to build on your advice, if I may, because I'm going to agree and disagree to some part of it. So completely agree. It's all about building the relationship and evaluate who's a good fit. I would say the best way, especially if you're a founder that doesn't have a network or thinks they don't, do that through an accelerator. The mentors who are investors and other experts are there specifically for you to have you pick our brain. That is literally why we're there, for free during the accelerator. I can't tell you enough how disappointed I am often when I mentor. Nobody reaches out, the accelerator ends, and suddenly there's a ton of questions. I'm like, well, now I have to start charging you. Or I get a bump, again, I feel very privileged. I get a lot of requests every single day on LinkedIn. Right? Can you give me feedback on this? Can you give me feedback on that? Like, I can't do that for free. So I usually send people to accelerators because, again, that's why we're there. We're offering our time. So you are starting to build that relationship. So I can't recommend that enough. I don't recommend cold emailing people on LinkedIn and just say, hey, can you just give me feedback? Because, again, that takes time. You want it for free. We have a med. I have no idea what you're doing. It's going to take me a lot of time to figure out, like, what are you trying to do? What are your goals for this feedback? All of this that, I just can't do in 5 minutes. What I have found is if you are doing a cold outreach, or, after this, you want to add me on LinkedIn and said, hey, you shared this great advice, blah, 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 is you've read a blog post and something is not clear. Send me that question that builds the rapport of, I've done the work, something is not clear. I'll either write you back with that question, I'll send you another blog post, maybe I'll send you to another office hour. And you start building that relationship without asking for, hey, can I have an hour of your time to pick my brain? I'm like, well, if you're willing to pay for it, sure. Or you can just come to office hours. That's the whole point, to make that affordable, approachable community building. So again, just highly recommend going to an accelerator. I didn't actually plan to, but Gary, actually, do you want to talk about yours? Where
We'll save that for later. We'll save that for later.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Um,
yeah, I'm glad that you're excited and you wanna push it
yeah,
forward.
because
That's awesome. Yeah.
that's the whole point. And I feel like, I talk to so many other mentors, and we're there to offer you support. So feel free to take advantage, of that. I'm the type of person that, if I said I'm mentoring you, I'm gonna mentor you. If you I will tell you when you're asking too many questions. I won't be working for you full time. But I feel like mostly when mentees join an accelerator, they don't lean all the mentors, and they don't spend as much time as I wish they had. Again, don't think of it as we're doing free work for you, because we're not there to give you work. We're not there to do work for you. We're there to give you advice, but you could reach out as often as you need to. But maybe that could be also a question to ask your mentor in the first day. Like, how often can I reach out? What should be our cadence? Again, building that rapport and collaboration. How do we work best together? I will tell you when, somebody's like, okay, can we meet like every other day? Like, no, because I'm mentoring at many other accelerators, but we can meet once a week. Or, you can send me questions in the meantime, or we can work async on Google Docs, or again, there's many different ways to support. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah. The main thing, as with most things, is to properly establish the context of the situation and what you're, operating within, and the different parties that are involved, and communicate and establish healthy boundaries, right? And so, yeah, like if you don't have any relationships and you're trying to connect with people who could be investors or advisors or co-founders or anything, right? Any sort of role that you need someone to fill, because you're only one person. You can't do everything, right? It's important to start with small little asks that don't make someone feel like you're entitled to their attention or time or efforts, right? And yeah, making sure to be aware of when you're reaching out to someone and how you're doing that, to again demonstrate you're someone that's worth supporting and is enjoyable to be around, at least in regards to you being respectful of them. It's going to go a long way. And Irina, like you said, you start by doing a little bit of research and showing that you're not reaching out to everyone and everyone, or anyone and everyone, just spamming them, which I get a lot of. Irina, I'm sure you get way more than I do, but it's like the worst thing, where it doesn't feel personal. It feels like they're just running AI bots and you're just getting slopped. You're just getting slopped on like constantly. So yeah, if you can showcase, hey, yeah, I know who you are. This is why I think, you're really admirable, and why I think you can help. I love just like, like, can you answer this real simple question that's relevant to you and what I'm trying to, learn? That goes a long way. And it's something that, you start with, that's like a 10-minute ask of their time, but you build on that and you start to build that rapport. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I may, actually, I will say not even 10 minutes. Like, if I can pull it up, answer right away, great. If it takes 10 minutes, that means I went off to a different tab and then it got lost. So that's just me. So if I can be like really quick, like, oh, thank you, like, yeah, that would be probably my request. Yeah.
Even better. So yeah, so everyone that's joining, if you got questions, post them in the chat. Let's hear them. Share what you got going on. I will relay to Irina. We've got a little bit more time. We got 10 minutes because we got a hard stop at
Yeah, 10
11.
minutes. Yeah.
So make use of this time. It's an opportunity right now. Connect with a mentor. In the meantime, what else has come up so far that would be good to dig deeper into? Anything off the top of your head, Irina, as I read through different comments?
Yeah. I think, no, that's a really good question. I think one thing that, I wanted to touch on is the point of the pitch deck, because I agree, it is about building the relationship, and then it's about getting the next meeting. I think a lot of startups, I think accelerators also don't do a good job of explaining, like, because the goal is often, okay, let's do a pitch deck, but it's, it gets you in the room. It gets you to have that conversation. So, for those that have, high attention to detail like me and want to explain everything, it's, again, it's what Gary told us, have a really digestible story so I can follow along. And say, yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. Great. Want to talk more. Then that gets you into the next meeting. Then we dig into certain things and go, oh, wow. Okay. They really have that expertise. They know what they're doing. Great. Next meeting. And so on and so forth. So that's kind of what you want us, the feeling to have. What I struggle with is, I think what is challenging with these pitches is everyone comes in with their own background and experiences. So the pitches that do well kind of bridge the gap of here's the context of, so let me see if I can pick an example. Again, maybe we can go back to the leak example because it's maybe so much more relatable, but we can also, if people have, want to put things in the chat and I can make up examples on the spot, let me know. But again, if it was a startup doing leaks, it's, hey, if I'm pitching to an audience of founders, I will tailor it to, in your rental or in your apartment. But if I'm pitching to an audience of, let's say, real estate agents, it's, wouldn't it suck if you're showing a place that just got flooded, right? Like you're tailoring to your audience so they can relate on, oh, wow, I totally feel the pain of, and I think I watched a bunch of real estate shows, and there was definitely one where they were showing a place and then somebody forgot to turn off the water and then it literally like flooded this millions and millions of dollar mansion, and they had to replace it and things like that. But being able to tailor to your audience and meeting them where they're at, because as much as you think we're also experts in your industry, we don't have that deep expertise. So I think it's a fine line between how much do you explain and how much do you leave for the next meeting. So hopefully that helps. And I see people are typing.
Yeah. Like the other thing to think about it is like a movie trailer, right? But a series of movie trailers to get to the finish line of money in your bank account, right? So yeah, design around that for sure. Yeah, why James is typing up something. Oh my gosh. I just had this question escape my mind.
Oh,
People
no.
don't, people like, it's funny, like you watch streamers and like they are handling so much. I don't even have like a deep chat like going off, but it's enough to like make my brain freeze just looking at all these different things. But James, I'm glad you posted a question to save me from this moment. So yeah, James asks, how does the startup climate feel like this year with regards to economy, politics, etc., compared to the past? Oh, that's good. And yeah, I'd love to hear like some additional insights in regards to how that's affecting things.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Yeah, like how long do we have? 2 minutes. No, just kidding. No, this is a really good question. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat things and say, it's been amazing. I think everyone is fundraising. The funds are having a hard time fundraising from high net worth individuals. Startups are having a harder time fundraising because there's just like a lot of uncertainty. Honestly, I think maybe I'll just leave it at that. I don't know if Gary, you want to add anything, but yeah, it's yeah, I think the uncertainty all around.
Yeah, I mean, to put it simply, but I mean, like, look, the main thing is de-risking the deal, right? If you have a business that has real validation and traction, and you as a founder and your team are capable of demonstrating a couple of those things I put on that list and start Motto Chat, but the main things are you're responsive, not reactionary. You're someone that they can trust with their money to lead in a way that is sensible and not rooted in your emotions or your paranoia, your fears of what the competition's doing or what the market's doing, every second of the day, which is volatile, especially like given the climate of the world right now. if you show that you're someone that's using methodology and you have the aptitude to learn from, these trials and tribulations and adversity and able to get past that adversity, then you're gonna be more attractive as a founder, as a deal to these people, and that's a lot of what the themes have been with Irina's conversations. So yeah, if you have more to add there, sure. I know we got 4 minutes now, but
Yeah.
we'll jump over to Med's question real quick, and we can return to this more conversation. So Med asks, I am an AI student from Tunisia, very interested in advancing my research skills. I have been exploring ways to break into AI research and notice some challenges in starting independently. Could you please share insights on effective strategy for beginning research projects, especially for students without an established lab or advisor? Additionally, what are some recommended steps or resources to help formulate a strong research question and methodology? Oh, this is kind of fun.
Yeah, these are really good. Really good questions. So I shared two blog posts of mine in the chat. So one is called Breaking into Data, and the other one is How to Be Your Own Mentor. And they're just on my blog post. But the main idea is, you start, well, what are you interested in? Kind of similar to startups, right? Like, what are you interested? What do you think is working? And then you see, well, what is something small I can do now to see, can I get an answer? And then what you'll see is, well, does it work, or what do you need to do next? And what you'll see is probably it doesn't really work, but it'll guide you to, well, what are you most interested in, to guide you to the next step. So again, going back to the leak example, we want to maybe predict all the leaks, but we're going to start with those that are, let's say, over 50 gallons. That's a lot more measurable. So then maybe you do a predictive model of, okay, was this a 50-gallon leak or not? Okay, how well did we do? And the costs of getting the answer wrong with when it was a leak, when it wasn't, and when it wasn't a leak and it was, are different. So that guides you to, what do I need to optimize for next? And again, this applies to startups as well. Of, okay, you started an MVP, then you see, what are your customers buying? Oh, they're actually not, but there's this other niche. How do I dig into that? What do they really get curious about? And then that guides kind of the research question around. So the first part is, is the customer discovery / lit review of, I have a problem, let's apply what we learned. Do we actually solve the problem? No. Okay, how do we go in the next direction? So that guides the next step. And again, it's based on what are those trade-offs between what you're trying to predict and what are the costs to getting it wrong. But yeah, really good question. And honestly, when I, that, for better or for worse, that's how I talk about, getting, as you know, I have my PhD, and the way that I talk about it is, in undergrad, you learned all the methods. For the master's, you learn the theory behind them. For the PhD, you invent your own. And the way you do it is you start with, here's my question. Okay, lit review, what exists? Okay, well, this didn't solve my problem. Can I try this thing? Oh, that didn't work. Let me try this other thing. Can I improve this other little thing? And once it works, voila, you have the PhD. So there's no guarantee it'll work. Same thing with a startup. I feel like actually a startup, you probably have more feedback loops around. We started the MVP. We saw where the customers are going. Well, this part is resonating. Let's niche into that and focus on that, and then grow that. So that's probably the tidbit. But yeah, really, really great questions. If there's more, feel free, obviously, to reach out. And then I look forward to doing another one again. Have a good rest of your week, everyone.
Yeah, appreciate it, Irina. I know you got a hard stop. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I posted in the chat also link to our new incubator program for those in the greater LA area. Irina will be playing a role in that because Irina's amazing. And yeah, we'll get you scheduled again soon. Any final conclusions other than that?
I would say check it out. I mean, yeah, we didn't talk about your incubator at all, but, I'm always a big fan of, accelerators that don't take equity and provide a lot of value. And Gary, as you know, has been doing this for many years, and I've enjoyed doing this supporting the community as well. So again, not affiliated, not getting paid to say this at all, but consider being a part of the community where you get access to mentors and getting access to events like these.
Love it.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, I'll
Bye.
hang out again
Have a good
soon.
day.
Take care. Have a great week. All right. We're going to shut this down, people. Thank you for being a part of it. Let's go. Later.